Hi, this is Dee, and you're listening to my podcast, Let Me Clear My Throat. Tonight we're going to talk about something that is a little different, I guess, but it kind of got me thinking when I was thinking about it one day, obviously thinking about it when I was thinking about it, something that I have been desperately going through for quite some time, and I know some people that are doing the same, but it is, I think, overlooked a lot. I think it's something that doesn't get looked at in the sense that is important and as in-depth as I believe it should be. And I say this speaking from experience. I'm going to talk about addiction, but this addiction has nothing necessary to do with drugs, alcohol, kleptomaniac, bulimia, any type of other addiction that one may think. This particular addiction is being addicted to depression. And some people might think, that just sounds silly. There's no way somebody would want to be addicted to depression. Well, first of all, nobody wants to be in depression. But sometimes you can get caught into depression so deeply that it actually doesn't seem like there's any other way in your life but the depression. And it comes, I guess, what some people would not classify it as if you look at it in a form of addiction, but very consuming of your life. It pretty much consumes your life, takes over your life, causes you to lose everything in your life that you love, including yourself. You could lose your home, your job, your well-beings, your family, anything and everything. Because when you're in deep depression, it gives, it's really kind of hard to explain unless you've really been in it. I always say that, that there are a lot of people in there that say, oh, I'm depressed. And yes, I agree. There's a lot of people that are depressed. But there's different levels of depression that some are so consuming and overwhelming that they engulf you as a human being, as somebody who struggles just to even take their next breath. And you don't even necessarily realize that you're in that depth, and then you don't know how to even begin to get out of it. And I have found some information on the internet from recoveryranger.com. This is where I got this particular article. I'm going to read it with you, or not read it, I say this every time. Read it to you. If you want to go on there and read along with me, then we'll read it together. But I'm going to read this to you. I kind of skimmed over it, and obviously, if you know me, I'm going to kind of put my own input into it as well. But this was by Francisco Church, and it is dated March the 29th of 2023. And again, it's from recoveryranger.com. They do have a lot of information on there. If you get a chance to check out their site, I encourage you to do so. There is a lot of great information on there. Some things that maybe you might not even thought to even look up or even considered was even a thing. They have a lot of articles on mental illness and grief and different things that might pertain to something that you need. This one in particular, it caught my attention because I was thinking about it one day. It was like depression, because I'm suffering very hardly in my depression. And I've been going through it for years. And it's very, very deep. And I'm to the point in my life that I need to have some type of switch very soon because I feel so stuck. And I say that in the sense of you get this emotion and this feeling, it's like an emotion that consumes your whole being. So like if you meet somebody and you're like, you fall madly in love with them, all whatever, and you know that you love this person, and all you can think about is love, 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 love. That's kind of like depression, but opposite of love. And depression, it's like, it's a whole different language of who you are, if that makes any sense. It makes sense in my head, but that's dangerous. But in depression, you half the time don't know if you're coming or going. You have a hard time getting up out of bed. You get a hard time just even taking a shower. A simple shower is so overwhelming to do. Opening the door and looking outside, looking out the window, opening your eyes in the morning, even getting up, period, is so overwhelming. And it is, if you opened your eyes today, I am proud of you, because that in itself is a huge accomplishment. And people might think that's just silly, whatever. You have to open your eyes every day. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because depression can get so deep and so overwhelming that a black cloud has nothing to do, or it has no power over you. The black cloud does not even exist to depression. Depression is way more bigger than that black cloud could ever even think about being. And I pray for everybody that is in that level of death, because some people do not make it out of it. And I, for one, have been very, very deeply to that point in my life. And I've talked about it in a few of my other podcasts. I've been pretty candid and in-depth in all my podcasts. I'm an open book, and I don't tiptoe on eggshells worrying about who's listening to my podcast, because this is my podcast. And if I want to walk on eggshells and monitor every single person that is listening, then there's no sense in having it, because this is me. This is who I am. This is how I feel. These are examples in my life, things that I've experienced, research that I followed up through. I have been through a lot in my life. But at the same time, too, I know that there are so many more people out there that have had way more things go on with them than I have ever even, that has ever even happened to me. And I'm hoping that I can actually, at least, my goal, I guess, is to try to at least make an impact somewhere. Help somebody, be able to let other people know that you're not alone. There are people out there. There are people that care. There are people that have go through or have gone through similar situations or different levels of emotion that you're at. And although that may seem impossible, or you don't believe it, or whatever your case may be, there is always somebody going through something. But the level and the depth that it takes determines on the well-being of you. And if somebody can go through the exact same thing as you, to the T, we'll hypothetically say, but it may not affect them like it does you, because you're a different person. You have different emotions, different way you handle things, different experiences in your life, maybe even different resources, whatever the case may be. You're going to handle it differently than what somebody else does. And when somebody comes up to you and says, well, I would do this, I would do that, blah, blah, blah. And yes, obviously, me, for example, here, I'm going to sit here and read this to you. My intentions are in the right place. And I can give you all the resources possible. But if you cannot even find a way to take that type of step in your life, even to put your toe in the water, so to speak, that in itself is very overwhelming for a person in depression to do. I can read everything to you, give you all the resources, even take you wherever you need to go. But if you do not have the ability, and I say this with respect, the ability mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever the case may be, to even open your eyes and put your foot on the floor, that in itself is a hard step to do. And unless you've went through that, you don't know that level. It's easy to judge somebody and say, well, you just need to get up and just start doing something. Well, the first place to do is just to get up and do it. You need to go do this, this, and this, or, just get over it. And it's not that easy. There are people that have told other people to get over it. And the only way those people could find to get over it was to end it. And there is help out there. There is help out there. And I can say that till I'm blue in the face. But if you are not in the state of mind to be able to handle reaching out to someone, then you're not going to be able to do that. I can tell you all day long, well, you need to call so-and-so, you need to reach out to this person or call this resource or 988, which is the suicide prevention hotline. Or people say, hey, call me if you need anything. If you are not in the mental state of mind, you are not going to be able to do that. And you can have any game plan ahead of whatever, but you have to learn how to find ways to cope and walk yourself through calming down, getting your anxiety worked through, your panic attacks, giving yourself pep talks, whatever the case may be. I know sometimes when I talk about this all the time, when I get overwhelmed, my anxiety gets very high. I get into a panic attack. I can feel one starting. I start saying my ABCs. And at the end, when it says, once you're saying with me, I take a deep breath and I do them again. And I keep doing them until I can do them without hesitating, without crying, without pausing, without having to take a breath. I keep doing them. And sometimes when my anxiety and my panic attack is so deep, I will do my ABCs in sign language and say them at the same time. And sometimes I've had to do them very slow because I have been so upset I would not be able to function, to be able to get the flow of my hands to move right. And usually by the time I can get one through without hesitating and pausing, I'll take a deep breath and I'll do another one to make sure that it's basically like a cleansing ABC, if you will, to make sure that I am calm. And I do that as many times as I need to, and it works for me. I used to do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it didn't work for me as much anymore as what it used to. It did in the past. I'd be driving down the road all upset, couldn't see, crying, and from crying and stuff, and I would do that, and it would calm me down. I would sing songs, would name the states or count or sing nursery rhymes, whatever the case may be. But I have found that the saying my ABCs has worked the best. And sometimes when I get to the point where I can't, like you can't sleep and whatever, you need to change your scenery. And sometimes I will go outside and I will get a breath of air and try to calm myself. And sometimes you need to get a change of scenery from where you're at. And it can be something simple as walking in the other room. And sometimes I find that has helped me to give me a change of atmosphere. So then I can come back in here and lay back down and hopefully go back to sleep. But sometimes in depression, it goes a little bit deeper because it's not so much as just an anxiety or a panic attack. It's an attack of just being hollow, being empty, being lost, being confused, being dormant. So many emotions, but yet you feel nothing. And it is so hard to explain and get the words right because it's an emotion that I don't think the definition really defines the word. But we're going to talk about this paper that I found, this article on recoveryranger.com, and we're going to see what it kind of says. And maybe in this article we can pull some stuff out of here that might actually be able to help you and even myself, because I'm to the point in my life, if I don't do something different in my life sooner than later, I don't know how it's going to affect me. I feel so stuck. And I don't even know if that's even the word. And it's so hard to explain. It's like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to get up. I don't want to go places. I don't want to go nowhere. If I go somewhere, I'm ready to go back home, go to bed. I'm tired all the time. I'm overwhelmed. I've got huge to-do lists everywhere. And I have to remember to calm myself down. And I'll start thinking of things and it's like, okay, is that going to matter right now? And I've tried to make lists of importance of things and try to categorize them, if you will, on levels of importance. And maybe that's helped a little bit, but then you got to redo the list again, thinking, okay, what is doable now? What is pressing now? And trying to get it to where you can organize your mind, if you will. Sometimes that helps, but if you have a hard time even getting up to get a pen and paper, or even getting yourself out of the bed, period, your mind is just going to sit there and play in your head. And that in itself overwhelms you just much. It's kind of like a catch-22. You know, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. And honestly, you really, to the point, you don't really even give a damn. You know? And so it's an emptiness. But anyway, we're going to read on to this. It's, can you be addicted to depression? And again, this is by Francisco Church, dated on 3/29/23 from recoveryranger.com. It says, depression is an illness that affects millions of people around the world. It can be deliberate. I'm going to start my words already now, I'm tripping over them. You know what? Messing you up. We're just going to say that. Okay? It could mess you up. And can take a toll on the lives of those who suffer from it. But what happens when the depression itself becomes an addiction? Can you become addicted to depression? In this article, we'll explore the possibility of an addiction to depression and what it might mean for those who suffer from it. So, can you be addicted to depression? Yes, you can become addicted to depression. Depression can be both an emotional and physical addiction. Emotionally, depression can cause a person to become dependent on feeling sad and hopeless. Now, that might sound crazy, but it becomes such a way of life, so in depth and for so long, that you start to feel like that's all you know. And everywhere you look, there are tears. Everything is sad. And then your sadness has sadness. It says physically, it can cause a person to become dependent on the physical effects of depression, such as fatigue or low energy. Both can create a cycle of addiction, as the person feels compelled to return to the same emotional and physical state. Can depression lead to addiction? Depression is a mental illness that can cause a person to feel overwhelmingly sad, loss of energy, and difficulty focusing. It can also lead to addiction, as it can cause people to turn to drugs, alcohol, or other activities as a way of coping with their depression. While it is possible to be addicted to depression, it is more important to understand that depression itself is not an addiction. Rather, it is a mental illness that can lead to addiction that is not properly treated. So, I say this all the time with, when people talk about addiction, and I'm going to, a lot of people, when people talk about addiction, they automatically think the first thing usually that comes to their mind is drugs and alcohol. And while this is a true addiction, there are way, way more forms of addiction than what people give it credit to, per se. So, like, people are addicted to cigarettes. People are addicted to shopping. People are addicted to working out and health and fitness. People are addicted to their phones. People are addicted to sex. People are addicted to stealing, kleptomaniac. People are addicted to anything that engulfs you, and you use it as a form of self-medicating to pacify you for whatever reason. And this is my input. To pacify you in any form, whether it be positive reinforcement of self-medicating or negative reinforcement of self-medicating. Either way, it's an addiction. You got, I guess you can say, good addiction, and you got bad addiction. And a lot of people want to automatically throw drugs and alcohol and have that's addiction. There are people that smoke cigarettes, that's addiction. Nicotine is a drug. There are over 6,000 carcinogens in a cigarette. 6,000 carcinogens. Known carcinogens. Nicotine is a drug. It is a form of a drug. So every time you smoke on your cigarette, and you want to judge a drug addict, look down at your cigarette. Even though it might not be, say, heroin or meth or pot or whatever the case may be, your cigarette has 6,000 carcinogenics, nicotine being the main, and it is a drug, and it is addicting. You have to have your cigarette to calm you down. You have to have your cigarette when you get up. You have a cigarette after you get done eating. You have a cigarette throughout the day, driving down the road. Sometimes you're chain smoking one after another, and you're like, no, I don't chain smoke. Yeah, you do. You might not realize you do, but how many packs of cigarettes do you really go through honestly in a day, or in a week, or in a month? That is a form of addiction as well. Self-medicating. It helps calm you down. So, and I'm not trying to pick on just cigarette smokers. That's just an example. You have people that are kleptomaniacs. They go out and they steal things. They're what people classify as thieves. You got people that have bulimia. Where they make themselves throw up. They're addicted to that level. Maybe that sounds silly to some, but to them, that is what they deal with. And there are different, it's a self-medication for them. And I know that sounds silly to you, but to them, it's a life-threatening thing. And so when somebody says addiction, and I know this might be off subject, but it's not. Because I get so infuriated when everybody just wants to look at drugs and alcohol and judge people. It's like when something happens, say there's a car accident. First thing people usually say is whether they're probably on something. Maybe they were drunk or on something. That's usually the first thing that comes out of their mouth. Why? Maybe an accident is just an accident. Maybe somebody didn't see somebody. Maybe the light was in their eye. Maybe they had to go to the bathroom and they weren't paying attention because they were trying to get to the restroom. Maybe their kid was screaming and hollering. Who knows? But why is the first thing that needs to come to mind drugs and alcohol? Maybe somebody was wrestling to reach down to get their cigarette. Or maybe their cigarette fell and they were trying to get it to not burn themselves. It could be a number of things. There are more addictions in this world than just drugs and alcohol. I guarantee it. And now we learn that depression is a form of addiction. Would you have ever dreamt that before? Thought, oh, I'm addicted to depression. People say, oh, what's your DOC? Now, some people, they might ramble off their DOC number, okay? All due respect. And a little side humor, I was talking to my daughter one day, and I said, I was reading this article, and I laughed because I did it too. And I said, read this to me, and you tell me how you take this. And it said, blah, 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 whatever. And then it said, DOC, blah, blah, blah. And I said, what do you take this at, this DOC? And she said, like a DOC number? I said, no, that means doctor. DOC, doc, blah, blah, blah. I said the same thing. DOC, let's ramble off a DOC number. Most people call it doc. The person's name was Doc. And other people say, what's your DOC? Drug of choice. So nobody would ever think to say, oh, my DOC drug of choice is depression. Nobody gets up in the day and says, today I'm going to be addicted to depression. That sounds like fun. Or I'm going to be addicted to, heroin today. And then I'm going to follow up and have an alcohol problem because, hey, who needs my life anyway, right? I just need to mix them all together. And then while I'm at it, where'd my cigarettes go? Nobody gets up and says, I'm going to be an addict today. I'm going to start being an addict today. There's a root to the problem. There's a root to the reason of the self-medication. And this is off subject, but it's not off subject because depression is so deep that it leads to so many things that people try to do to alleviate their pain. There's a root to the problem. There's a root to their pain. There's a root to self-medicating. There's a root to whatever it is they're going through. And it might not be a root that runs through your backyard, but don't you judge them on theirs. Because you don't know why they're doing and going through what they're doing. And a lot of people, I say, maybe not a lot of people, that's a bad example, I shouldn't say that. There are people that may have only one drug of choice, and I say drug of choice, but maybe that's not true either. Maybe they only have one type of drug that they do. And that form of drug is not working for them. It's just not taking their pain away. So they add another one. That's not working either. So maybe they might add some alcohol in the mix. Or maybe they might pop some pills. Maybe they might do some this and that and the other. And it's still not working. They're trying to do something to take and ease the pain that they're feeling, not realizing that it's not even the addiction of the drugs and the alcohol or whatever the addiction is. It's the cause and the root of what caused the pain. You could sit here and make people do all kinds of treatment and rehabilitation all you want to. And it is a great thing. Don't misunderstand me. But unless you get to the root of the problem of what started that, what are you really fixing? Because that pain is still going to be there. And now not only are they going to be fighting whatever pain they're going through, they might not even realize or know what it is. Now they're going to have to be also having the hardship of trying to stay sober. And he'll, as an addict, but also too, now have the damning of themselves from society and maybe their family and maybe even themselves. They have to now get through that level in hopes they don't relapse. And on top of that, they pray that, there's some type of, that people don't give up on them. That they try so hard to be different, to try to better themselves, they don't want to feel like a piece of shit. They don't want to feel worthless. They don't want to feel you with your mean mugging eyes on them, if you will. They don't need to feel you staring at them and you're not even there. And I say that in all due respect. People are so inclined to judge people on things they don't understand and know. Instead, people need to be more empathetic and understanding and less judgmental. Because this world would be a far greater place to be. We are so more eager to damn people than to stick your arm out and help them up. And you don't even have to help them up to do anything. You just have to help them up. You don't even have to say a word. Just don't damn them. And that goes a long way. They've got more people damning them in their ear than they've ever had a drug in their hand. I guarantee that. And it's a level, if you have not been through, you know nothing about. And you should count your blessings. And just pray that you never have that one moment that you become that same statistic next to that other person. Because it does happen that way. Now, you might think you have your whole life together and you got this, that, and your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed and whatever. You put commas between you and RE to make your, and I do too, but still the same. You are one moment away from being in that level. You're one moment from being in the level of depression. Say you have a loved one. And your loved one passes away, or your loved one's in a car accident and maybe is paralyzed or in a coma or something traumatic, or whatever the case may be. You've lost your job, you lost your house, you lost your home, you lost your family, you lost all your money, you've lost your mental stability, whatever the case may be, and it's just, hell of the world. You could have the death of your spouse, a child, a grandkid, a parent, a friend, anything. And that is one breath, one moment away from sinking you so deep in depression that you don't even see anything or anybody else, even if they were standing right in front of you. Because all you see is the curtain of tears that you cannot stop from falling, even if there's not a drop on your face. Because sometimes you might feel like you've cried an ocean, but sometimes it's the silent tears that are more deadly than the open ones. I am very notorious of saying, push it back. Don't deal with it right now. Just push it back. Deal with it later. And it consumes up. It piles up. And then it ends up being unhealthy. But then if you have a breakdown, you have a mental breakdown, an emotional breakdown, and this is what I'm afraid of, because I've been pushing things away for so long and so deep. And some recent things in my life that I have not fully adjusted and dealt with. I'm trying to, but I'm not, because I'm not ready to. I am not prepared for that level, and I know that. And, you're never really prepared, but I have come out of a very, I've come out of a very, very dark depression, and I'm not even out of it yet. And for me to be sitting here and talking in your ear right now is a miracle just in itself. I promise you that. Because I was at that level. I was at the level. I was at the edge of, I had a gun to my head. I was ready. And from the grace of God and many other things, my life did not end that moment. And I am at a level now that I am trying to do life. I am trying to do life. For the first time in my life, I want to live. I believe wholeheartedly that I have a lot of things left to do and a lot of people left to help. But I also know that I am not ready to give up on me. And even though I'm in a level of depression that I'm at still today, it is not the depression I was at a year and a half ago. And I have come a long, long way. And even though people don't see it, people don't care to even pay attention or look or acknowledge or whatever the case may be, I do. And I try to remind myself how far I've come. Because I'm trying to teach myself that I am worth it. I am enough. It is okay to be me. And I'm tired of apologizing on being myself. And I'm tired of feeling like I need to prove myself to myself. And when you are deep in depression, that weighs heavy on you. In so many ways, because you don't want to die, you just want the pain to stop. And when you start self-medicating, you want the pain to stop, and it doesn't. In fact, it intensifies. And before you know it, you got so many addictions at you. But on top of that, you got so many people that are supposed to be there and love you. And I'm not saying, don't misunderstand, because I know there's a lot of families that go through a lot of stuff because of people that are going through addiction and whatnot. I get that. And for those families, my heart goes out to you. But there are some families that would rather judge you, damn you, and try to bury you without you being dead per se to the rest of your family than try to understand, be there, help you, and basically keep your effing mouth shut on something you don't even freaking know. And if you're supposed to be somebody in the family that is supposed to care and love your other family member, how dare you? Maybe you need to get up and step away from that table, because obviously you don't deserve to sit there, in my eyes. Because you're just a relative then. You got family and you got relatives. And some people need to learn the difference. Just like you got friends and acquaintances. Some people need to know the difference. And if you don't know, please don't judge. Because sometimes you might just be that one person that makes the difference to somebody else. They don't even need you to tell them what they need to do. Maybe they just need to talk. And somebody just listen. And they know that they're not talking to the wall. They're not talking to the air. They're not talking to their pillow. They're not talking to themselves in their head, which is making them crazy or feeling. They actually have somebody who has taken their time out of their life to listen to them. And that might be what starts the factor of them starting to feel the motivation to take it a step further for themselves and find hope and promise and, I don't know, a new sense of being instead of just being a hollow, dormant shell laying on their bed. You know, this is my opinion. It says effects of depression. Depression can have a significant impact on a person's life, including their mental health, physical health, and social health. For example, depression can lead to difficulty sleeping, poor concentration, and difficulty forming relationships. It can also lead to an increase in anxiety, feelings of guilt and worthlessness, and thoughts of death or suicide. Depression can also lead to physical symptoms such as headaches and fatigue. I don't know about some of you people, but sometimes I get such bad insomnia. And then, then you get mad at yourself because you want to sleep. But then you get so tired that all you want to do is sleep. And it goes back and forth. And it drives me insane. Worse than I already am, but the link between depression and addiction. Depression and addiction are closely linked, as people who are suffering from depression may turn to drugs or alcohol as a form of self-medication. This can lead to the development of an addiction, as the person will become dependent on the substance in order to cope with their feelings. Additionally, addiction can lead to further depression, as the person may become overwhelmed with guilt and shame due to their substance abuse. Now, I'm going to say this. We just talked about addiction and drugs and whatnot. Sometimes people are on medication. And sometimes medication have worse effects on somebody than their actual depression did to begin with. And I saw this infomercial one time. It's been, I don't even remember what it was on. It was years ago. Because anybody knows me knows that I'm not a big TV person. So this probably had to be in the 80s or 90s. But anyway, they had this infomercial on there. And it basically said, call someone if you have serious side effects such as blah, 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 blah. And then it said, and death. How am I supposed to call you if I died? I don't think they thought that one through. But some medications are more dangerous than the actual thing that you're trying to treat. So be knowledgeable of your medication, be knowledgeable of the side effects, but also be knowledgeable of what you're mixing them with. Some alcohol is not good with certain medications. Grapefruit juice is not good with a lot of medications. Please check that on your medication. That is a big, huge factor. There are certain types of juices and things like that that are not compatible with medication. Certain types of street drugs, obviously, are not compatible with some medications. But there are also over-the-counter vitamins and minerals and whatnot that they sell that are not compatible with certain medications. So make sure that even though you're trying to do the right thing with your medication, and I applaud you for that, make sure that what you are taking with that, even if it's just vitamins and herbs, or whatever the case may be, make sure it's compatible. Because certain things like St. John's wort is not compatible with some medications. And there's obviously different ones. Those are just an example. But make sure that you check into that. Because if you find something that is not intertwining or is not complementary to the other, it can be deadly. And it can have worse effects on you than had you have not gotten any help and taken anything. So that's just my word of caution, my opinion to you. Knowledgeable on, just pay attention and do your research on what you're putting in your body, but more so what is not compatible and what is compatible. And if you're not sure, ask the pharmacist. The pharmacist will tell you. They are very, very, very knowledgeable, trained people. They're right there for your resource. They will come over and they will talk to you. They will consultation up there, whatever the case may be, and ask them. And if you are taking some type of narcotic, such as like Percocets, or maybe you're doing prescription fentanyl or morphine or whatever the case may be, talk to your pharmacist if they don't already ask you about getting a prescription of Narcan. Because the pharmacist will prescribe you Narcan. They will. If you are taking your narcotic drugs legally, the pharmacist will prescribe you Narcan. Not your doctor don't have to. The pharmacist will. And I know this for a fact. Because my mom has been on some medication. And the pharmacist asked me, do you want me to prescribe her some Narcan? So that way, in case an accidental overdose on her medication, it's better to be safe than sorry. And of course I said yes. Because she was taking multiple ones of different kinds, just in case she accidentally too much, or if because they were doing like a trial and error on her medicine, just to be safe. So you can ask your pharmacist on that, just knowledge. And I know like there are different types of places that are around, just do your research on it, that give it for free. They will mail it to you. I know like here in Indiana, I think it's overdose.com or something. They will actually mail you Narcan intramuscular and the nasal, and they will even send you fentanyl test strips for free. And I actually did like a small video thing on it or whatever when I ordered some in for me because I wanted to see if it was true, and it was. And I told them how many I wanted, and they sent them to me. So just be knowledgeable. And I know I think somebody told me that there's some hospitals that also give them out for free, kind of like a vending machine, if you will. I believe somebody had told me that probably a few months ago. So anyway, I know it's a little side information that it doesn't pertain to this, but it does, because it all goes together. It really does go together, because it's about you, and everything that's about you goes together. It's all intertwinable. And it's all very important. How to treat depression and addiction. Depression and addiction are both very serious illnesses, mental illnesses, that require professional treatment. Treatment for depression and addiction typically involves a combination of medication, psychotherapy, and lifestyle changes. Medications such as antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications can help to reduce the symptoms of depression, while psychotherapy can help the person to understand and manage their emotions. Lifestyle changes such as a healthy diet, regular exercise, and social support can help to improve a person's overall well-being. I know this very well because when I was going through some major trauma in my life, one thing I learned I wish I knew was having a place to put my feelings. when you are so consumed with different types of levels of emotion and different things that are going on, and you don't know what to do with them. You've got all these things going on in your head, all these emotions, all these feelings, all these everything, and you don't know how to sort them. You don't know where to put them. You don't know how to even deal with them. What do you do with them? And you have to find a place to put them. And putting them somewhere that's positive. Because if you take it and you put it in something that is not as positive, per se, such as some other form of addiction or whatever the case may be, that is not healthy, it can actually lead to a higher and more in-depth place for you to go. That's not good. If you find a positive direction to go, positive place to put your feelings, and then it's more of a healing process. Helping people, do you a podcast, put your feelings out there, journal, write. I write poetry, do, volunteer somewhere, be a mentor, help other people going through what you're going through, be a motivational speaker, whatever the case may be, find somewhere to put your feelings. If you don't, it can consume you, and it could be deadly. The role of support groups. Support groups can also be an important part of treatment for depression and addiction. Support groups can provide a safe and supportive environment for people to share their experiences and connect with others who are going through similar struggles. Additionally, support groups can provide additional resources and guidance for people who are struggling with depression and addiction. So if you find a support group that you're comfortable with, because there are different types of support groups out there. If you are not comfortable in a support group you're going to, say it's a group, obviously a support group, but it's a group, and you are not comfortable with it and you don't feel like you're getting the best for you out of it, there are other options to do. Don't just stop at that one. If it don't fit you, find another one. I know that I was doing outpatient at this one place, and it was not what I wanted. It was a big room of people. They sat in tables and they had the long tables and people sat, at the table behind chairs, kind of like a classroom setting, if you will, but like in a U shape. And they went around the room and people, basically did a 5-second summary of why they were there. And then other people could chime in if they wanted to, and then they moved on. And if you had too much going on, per se, you basically really didn't have time to talk. You were cut off, and because time was limited, and they wanted to get around the room. So then they had to limit you on elaborating on what you're going through, what you need to talk about, whatever the case may be. And I didn't like having to repeat myself at every session. Let me move on from why am I here. I know why I'm here. I don't need to tell you in my 2 seconds of the floor, per se, explain to you again why I'm here. I know why I'm here. And if other people have been following along that are in this room, they know why I'm here. I need to go to the next sentence of whatever the case may be that I need. And I went to this for probably, a month or two maybe. And it's not what I wanted. I wanted more one-on-one. And now I actually see a psychiatrist one-on-one for an hour. And that is a lot better to me than the group. But there are groups out there that do it differently, different ways. They have their different own techniques. Find what works for you. And if a group setting does not work for you, then try one-on-one. And my choice, I could do it a video over the phone, on my laptop or whatever, or I could go into the office. And in the beginning I did video, but then I started going to the office. And it really has helped me. And then I started doing my podcast, and that has helped a lot because I have a place to put my feelings, but also to help helping other people, with all due respect and not sounding, I don't want to say that because that wouldn't be true, is very therapeutic for me. Because I love helping people. I love helping people. I would prefer to help people more than I help myself, and I'm working on that. I'm working on helping and being there for myself, as well as being there for other people. I'm trying to treat myself as compassionate, understanding, and caring and loving as I do a stranger. And maybe to some people that sounds silly, but if you are going through that kind of emotion, you understand. So try to find something that works for you. And if no therapy like that is something that you want to do, that's okay too. Don't let anybody force you to do a treatment that does not benefit your well-being. And I say that in the sense of it has to work for you because you're the one getting the treatment. And what works for one person might not work for you. That doesn't make you a bad person at all. And don't let them make you feel that way. That means that method is not made for you. This is like going out and buying an outfit. You see two outfits that are totally the same and they're identical. One might be a size bigger. Well, you love the outfit, but the smaller one's not going to work for you because it's too small. The other one does. Even though they're identical, they're different. And maybe that might not be a good example, but that's all I had at the moment. I grabbed it out of the air. So that's what I got. But anyway, I hope you understand. The importance of professional treatment. Although support groups can be beneficial, it is important to remember that professional treatment is essential for treating depression and addiction. Professional treatment can provide the person with the necessary tools and strategies to manage their symptoms and learn healthy coping skills. Additionally, professional treatment can help to ensure that the person receives the best possible care and support. Again, we talked earlier about finding coping mechanisms to help you work through your anxiety and your panic attacks and feeling of overwhelming or hopelessness. I know I did a podcast on Give Me Back My Mirror, which is basically about self-reflection and talking about when you look at the mirror, who do you see? Who do you really see? Do you see what society has made you feel that you look like? Or do you actually see you for how you really are? And with so many influences in life and the way people try to make us feel and look, it's hard to actually see and picture our own reflection of how we really are to ourselves. And there's so much negativity in that reflection that you know nothing else. So it's more a way of life of you to be negative at yourself and put yourself down than to think anything positive. And I was really bad at that. And I still kind of am, but I'm working through it. I'm trying to give me positive reinforcements of myself. Instead of standing in the mirror and telling myself I'm worthless, nobody will want me, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm this, I'm that, whatever the case may be, I'm trying now to go in there and look at myself in a way that I can try to condition myself to feel better and be a better person to me. I got enough people in this world beating me down and messing with my my well-being, my mental stability, my emotional stability, my physical stability, my spiritual stability. I've got so many people that are capable of reflecting their mirror at me, so to speak, that it actually blinds me from the reflection of their own opinion. I need to be able to see myself without actually having to hold a mirror to see that I'm a beautiful person, to feel that I am a beautiful person, that I am enough to be me, that I don't need their stamp of approval. I don't need their mirror. They need to take that mirror and look at themselves before they try to blind my eyes with their own reflection. Because I don't need a mirror to be a good person. I don't need a mirror to be beautiful. I don't need a mirror to feel beautiful. I don't need a mirror to feel like I am worthy and that I'm deserving of anything less than good. I've got enough negativity in my life. I don't need any more of it. And if I can't see myself and feel like a positive or I'm a good person. I'm a really good person. And I'm probably one of the most understanding, forgiving, thoughtful, kind, hard-headed, I ain't gonna lie there, person that you'll ever know. I have held and done so much for so many people in my life that I have pushed myself away and more willing to hold everybody else, that I was losing me. And then when I was falling, nobody even cared to put their hand out to help lift me up. They were too busy going on with whatever they needed to. They didn't even bother to look back. And I was on my own. And now I sit here in your ear, surviving my own breath. And I'm pretty freaking proud of myself. And I'm trying to teach myself to not only say that, but I pray that I will be able to eventually feel it. Because you can say it and say it and say it, but until you believe it and feel it, it's not as healing, I think, but it is more doable, in my opinion. Anyway, so it says the top 6 frequently asked questions. First, what is depression? Depression is a serious mental illness. Let me start that over. Depression is a serious mental health disorder that affects how an individual feels, thinks, and behaves. And a mood disorder characterized by feelings of sadness, loss of interest, and loss of energy. People who experience depression may have difficulty concentrating, sleeping, and carrying out daily activities. Additionally, depression can lead to physical symptoms such as headaches, fatigue, and digestive problems. Can you be addicted to depression? Yes, it is possible to be addicted to depression. Depression can be an addiction in the sense that individuals may become dependent on the feelings of sadness and despair that come with depression. This can lead to the unhealthy cycle where individuals become preoccupied with their depression, and the cycle can be difficult to break without help. Again, it's not so much as it's because when you're depressed, eventually it becomes the only way of life you know. And it's hard to get out of that cycle, per se, without an intervention of something positive, something that works for you to be able to make a positive direction in taking your next breath. Because it is that deep. It really is. What are the symptoms of depression addiction? The symptoms of depression addiction can vary from person to person, but some common signs include an obsession with negative thoughts, feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, difficulty concentrating, isolating oneself, a sense of worthlessness, and fatigue. Additionally, individuals may feel an urge to self-harm or engage in other risky behaviors. And if you've listened to my other podcasts, I am a self-harm survivor. I wear the scars on my arms to prove it. And a lot of people look at me in the past, and they have said it looked like I was in a fire or chemical burns. And that may be true the way it looks, but it's not what happened. Sometimes anxiety can get so big on you that you don't realize. Let me rephrase that. I didn't realize sometimes, subconsciously, what I was really doing. And some people are cutters. Some people are burners. They burn themselves. Some people self-mutilate. I mean, like, big time self-mutilate. Some people might rip their fingernails off, or, pain infliction that deep. And some people are pickers. And I was a picker. And I would pick at my arms really bad. Pick at my face, pick at my chest. I would have bruise from one side of my chest to the other. From shoulder to shoulder. It'd be a big, huge bruise. Where I was just pinching and picking. And I had to actually wrap my arms up in ace bandages to get myself to stop picking. And I was at a store one time, and a little girl with her mom looked at her mom and said, "What happened to her?" And her mom's like, "I don't know, but stop staring." And I had my arms wrapped up. And now I have my scars. And I used to hide them, but I don't anymore. Actually, sometimes I don't even... They're just a part of me now. And I don't know what they look like to other people, because obviously I don't look at them the same way as I used to. Now I just look at them as they're just a part of me. And I don't look at them as, I don't know, something that really just stands out. It just, to me, it blends in, And so my perception of looking at my scars obviously is not the same perception as somebody else that has maybe never saw them before or whatever, and their impression of them. And people that I've looked at them are like, did you get burned? And it's like, no, this is depression. And I'll talk with somebody about depression. I'm like, I got depression. I wear my scars. These are my scars of depression. And it's a whole different level. And around Father's Day, I haven't picked my arms in a long time. A long time. Like years. And Father's Day was really difficult for me. And you don't know, my dad passed away a couple years ago. And I had a anniversary of my best friend's death. She killed herself on Father's Day. So this particular Father's Day was very, very difficult for me. And subconsciously, I had to catch myself, because I picked my arm and my hand. And now I had to put Band-Aids on it, because now I had boo-boos. And when I went to therapy, I had just spoke to him about how proud I was that I had not been picking, that I was a self-harm survivor, and I was very, very proud of it. And when I went to therapy, I showed him what I did. And we talked about it. And I told him I didn't look at it as going backwards. I look at it as I sat down. I sat down and I had to remind myself to get back up. And that's how I had to look at it. And when I went to therapy, I think last time around, or the time before, he asked me how my picking was going, how I was doing on that. Have my arms been healing? And I showed him. And I said, I have not been picking it. And I had a sore on my hand. I had fell really hard, and I had hurt my leg real bad on the back of it, and I had conked my head unbelievably hard. I'm surprised I didn't knock it open and cut it open, but I hit it very, very hard, and it scraped my hand too. So I had a sore on my hand, and I had to be careful not to pick at it, so I put a Band-Aid on it for a while. And he asked me, well, what happened? And I fell. This is not from picking, I promise. And my thought was it would not do me any good to lie to him and tell him that it was from falling if it wasn't. Because then I would be lying to myself. And I have already lived so much of my life feeding myself so much negativity that it became my life. And I have to be to the point in my life that I need to own myself. I need to own who I am, even if I don't know who that is. I have to be honest with me, and it would not do me any good to lie to myself and say that I didn't do something, self-harm wise or whatever. Like if I would have picked at this and I said I didn't, that's not teaching myself anything on healing. And that's the whole purpose of why I'm trying to heal, why I'm trying to be in therapy, why I'm trying to on my medication, why I'm trying to get on my depression, why I'm trying to live. As a part of me healing. And it might not be to everybody's approval. It might not be the way everybody wants it. It might not even be anything anybody even notices. Or even gives a rat's ass about. But I need to. And I'm not always good at it. I argue with myself. I'm not going to joke about that. I do. But I'm also learning to talk to myself, reassure myself, and calm myself down. I have to have learning or strategies and coping mechanisms because I'm in a position where I don't have anybody to lean on to calm me down. And I have been to the point in my life that I have soaked my walls so deeply that my walls should have been sponges. Because they were soaked with my tears and my pain. And in order for me to heal that, then I had to find reasons that I felt like I was worth healing from. And maybe that doesn't make sense to some people, but it does to me. And I'm sure there are things about you that might not make sense to others. Don't apologize for that if it works for you healing. That's a positive direction as much as you can. And like I said, I'm not perfect. I still make mistakes. I still do things that I yell at myself over. I do. But I'm working on it. Healing is not something that is going to happen overnight. It has taken you years to get at that depth. You are not going to be able to swim to the top in one breath. Just make sure you don't drown in that same breath. Learn how to cope with what you need to the best that you can. Because not everybody has to swim to survive. Sometimes you learn how to just float. If that makes any sense. I'm a big metaphor person. Or whatever. But sometimes you have to float. And hover. But that doesn't mean you're not moving. It's when you're absolutely positively not doing anything that you can actually drown. And basically suffocate on your own oxygen. And that's a big deal. That is between life and death. Depression is that deep. It really, really is. What can I do to prevent depression addiction? To prevent depression addiction, it is important to recognize the signs and the symptoms of depression and seek help if needed. Additionally, it is important to maintain a healthy lifestyle, including regular exercise, healthy eating, and getting enough rest. It is also important to maintain a positive outlook and to stay connected to friends and family. Additionally, seeking support from a mental health professional can help to prevent depression addiction. Ultimately, it is clear that depression can be a powerful addiction and that it can have a serious and devastating impact on one's life. Therefore, if you or someone you love is struggling with depression, it is important to seek help from a mental health professional. With the right guidance and support, you can learn to manage your depression, break the cycle of addiction, and take your life back. Now, I'm going to say this, and I have said it before. That sounds fine and dandy and full of candy, and that is very, very true. It is 100% true. However, it is easier said than done. It is easy to think about, and it sounds really, really great, and a garden full of roses that smell awesome. But I guarantee you there are thorns in them beautiful bushes. It is not always that simple. Do not, if at all possible, and I say this with respect, do not give up on yourself. Do not give up you. And try to find ways when you're in a position with yourself that you can handle you. Try to figure out coping mechanisms. Try to find places that would be good for you to put your feelings and emotions. Find a way to do at least one thing different. Even if it's just once a week, making a change. I know for a while, I take care of my mom. And it got to the point for a while, a week would go by and I had not even opened the front door. Had not even looked outside at all. That was very, very unhealthy for me. So now I'm to the point, I try to at least remember to open the door or look out the window at least once a day. Because I was getting to the point where that door was never even opened. I never even saw outside. And that might sound silly to some people, but it's a real thing. So doing that one change of trying to at least open the door, even if it's for a brief moment, look outside, take in the moment, and decide after that moment what your next moment could be. You could take the chance to shut the door, or maybe you're going to open the door and step out onto the porch or on the step. Little baby steps. Put your toe in the water, so to speak. Because sometimes that's what it takes to eventually put your foot forward. And sometimes that first step is the hardest one to do. But once you do, and you start walking and moving and getting motivated, sunshine is a great vitamin D. It is very, very, very good for you. And if you are in the house and you are not getting any of that, that in itself is a big problem with depression. And my mom, who does not hardly go outside at all because she's basically bedridden, she actually has to take vitamin D supplements because your body needs it. It is something that your body needs. And if you don't get enough of it, you have to have medication for it. You have to have an alternate way to have that put into your body because your body requires that. So sometimes, though, when you get caught in your depression, if you don't have a prior game plan, or at least try to have a couple of game plans, if you will, because sometimes what works one time might not work the other. So try to have like a backup one, if you will. But when you're in that state of mind that you're not you per se, you will not be thinking rationally. You will not be, with all due respect, in your right frame of mind to think rationally, to be able to react rationally, to be able to do what you need to do. And it might be what sets you over the edge to not be able to survive that moment. So, and like I said before, if you have a way to have a game plan with someone that you trust, that does not judge you, that could be there for you just to listen, by all means, use that, utilize that. I unfortunately did not have that. 988 Suicide Prevention Hotline. I say that in every podcast I do. Know the resources in your area, though, because 988 might not be 988 where you're at. You might be in a different country or whatever the case may be. Try to know your resources, if at all possible. So that way you have them, write them on a piece of paper, put them in your pocket, program them in your phone. That would probably be the best thing to do. And have them available for you. The crisis line. If you are in therapy, your psychiatrist's phone number. Whatever, if they give it to you. Because they'd probably be getting a lot of phone calls. But check with them, though. I mean, they might be like a hotline or an emergency line, all jokes aside. But have resources for yourself. And then if you get to a moment where you're not at a safe spot for yourself, try to find a way to intervene the best that you can. And if it works for you, do your ABCs. And I say that because it does work for me. It is one of the best coping mechanisms I have ever invented for myself. And I have been to the point where I have been so hysterically crying, I didn't think I was going to be able to stop. I was so bad. And I had nobody available to even begin to have a way to intervene at all. And I had to get it under control or I was not going to stop. And I calmed myself down with my ABCs. And in the midst of being upset, I saw that my ABCs were not working as well because I was so hysterical that I had to do an alternate route with myself, with my brain, to do two things at once, if that makes sense. To give my brain double occupancy of something to do. So I guess like a diversion, if you will. So I gave myself something double to think about, a double action. So I was saying and I was signing. So I was mentally thinking and talking and obviously listening to myself, but I was also signing with my hand. So I was doing different motions with myself to make my brain do different things to counteract my anxiety and the pain and stuff that I was dealing with. So it was trying to basically redirect myself by multitasking my therapy of calming. And it worked. It really honestly worked. It took me a while. I had to do it a few times. I ain't gonna lie. I had to do it a few times. And then it got to the point where I was saying my ABCs out loud and I was doing it evenly with signing. And there'd be times I'd have to, it was really slow. because I was so upset. I couldn't talk clearly with my breath and say my alphabet without losing my breath or pausing. And until I could do that without no pause and without no interruption in my flow of my talking or the flow of my hands signing, until I could do that, I didn't stop. But I remembered at the end of each time I would finish my ABCs, I would take a deep breath, and then I would start again. And eventually it did calm me down. And it worked. And I've actually done it a few times where I was really hysterical. But it worked. And it might not work for you, but it might. And it's just, that's just me to you on a form of something that works for me that might help you. But that's an example of something so simple on something so complicated. That might just be what you need to intervene where you're at. And you know you better than anybody. That you will learn to know what works for you and what don't. You might be a visual person and need a focal point. Whatever works for you. And eventually, you'll find what you need. Just don't give up on yourself. I am living proof not to give up on yourself. Because I wouldn't be sitting here. I promise you that. I would not have been sitting here. And if you are going through something, my heart goes out to you. And I keep everybody in my prayers each night. I do. And I pray that you find your next breath. But I pray that it doesn't take your breath away while doing it. And that is a big deal. There is a difference. At least from my experience. And I'm going to wrap it up here. If you haven't checked out my other podcasts, please do so. I have Podbean channel and also a YouTube channel. And there are several podcasts on there that I do. I'm very open and candid about things. Maybe some things in there that might actually help you. You'll learn a lot about me, which is fine. I mean, I don't have anything to hide on that. So, and like I always say, if you've given your time out of your life, it is the one thing in your life that you can't get back. And you have shared it with me, and I wholeheartedly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate that. And I do pray that you find a way to be able to put your toe in the water at least. You at least deserve that as a start of taking your next step. And don't let anybody tell you that you are not worth anything less than the beautiful person that you are. And on that, I'm going to close now. And I thank everybody for joining me. I hope everybody has a safe and healthy and happy, blessed evening. Good night.